Ras. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 5 6 7 8 9 10 511 512.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you all? We've been waiting for a few more to make their way into the auditorium here. I'm absolutely delighted to join you today. My name is Jane Witherspoon. I'm the managing editor for Euronews across the Central Asia region, including South Caucasus and, of course, the Middle East as well.
И, конечно, и Ближнего Востока. Я очень рада быть здесь. Соответственно, в Ташкентском международном инвестиционном форуме. И я думаю, что у нас есть для вас что-то особенное. И, соответственно, и креативной экономики до наследия, соответственно, будущего. И, соответственно, для обсуждения мы, соответственно, рады здесь приветствовать трех весьма талантливых докладчиков, которые...
Amarova, chairperson of the Art and Cultural Development Foundation of Uzbekistan. Welcome, Gayan. We also have Sara Raza, curator and artistic director of the Center for Contemporary Arts here in Tashkent. And last but by no means least, please put your hands together as well for Diana Campbell, artistic director of the Bukhara Biennale First Edition. Before we get down to business and get into our conversations, I'm going to give a little bit to put into context what they have done and what their role is now. So I'm going to hand you over first off to Gayan. You just press the speaker.
Thank you so much, Jane. It's really a true pleasure to be with the audience today, and also I'm thrilled to have you as a moderator with us. So basically, I'm a chairperson of the Art and Culture Development Foundation in Uzbekistan, and we've been founded 7 years ago by the decree of our president, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, in order to be the leading organization, in order to foster the creative economy, the cultural dialogue with the outside world, to work on a cultural diplomacy, and also to support all the cultural initiatives that was planning to be in the country at that moment. And so far we've been quite successful. As a chairperson and also as a head of the foundation, this year it was quite successful for us, because I was a commissioner of the National Pavilion at Expo, which actually happened for the first time in Uzbekistan since the president decided that the cultural institution supposed to be a commissioner of the pavilion, which usually is supporting by the investment or by the trade organization. So I see already it's a big shift into the cultural perspectives for our country. Thank you. Thank you.
Diana, if you just want to bring your mics around to your mouths as well, so
sure.
We can. Thank you.
Great. So thank you so much for including me here. It's wonderful to be here. I've been working in Uzbekistan for about 1.5 years developing the Bukhara Biennial, which is chaired by Gayane, my colleague here. And what's interesting about being in this investment forum is my career actually started working in JP Morgan in New York as a research analyst looking at restaurants and also at Sotheby's. And I now work for several private foundations developing nonprofit platforms for artists and the public to engage over contemporary art and to understand the world in a wider way through cross-cultural dialogue with mostly living artists who are trying to, I guess, develop what we will define our era in the future through arts and culture. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sara.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to thank the Investment Forum, also my colleagues, Jane, Gaina Umarova, and Diana Campbell. It's a pleasure to be with you all. A short, brief introduction about myself. In January, I was appointed Artistic Director and Chief Curator of the forthcoming Center of Contemporary Arts in Tashkent, which is due to open in the fall. Prior to that, I was working across international museums, from Tate Modern to Guggenheim Museum in New York. My art historical research is looking at Central Asia, its relationship to the Middle East, and elsewhere. I'm very much interested in the dialogue between East-East, and particularly about how 2/3 of the world were not looking to Europe and North America to necessarily define themselves. and really sort of reconfiguring what it means to look at the global south in the 21st century. And I'm sort of delighted to be given this opportunity by the Art and Culture Development Foundation to work with local communities here in Uzbekistan to sort of use the site of the Contemporary Arts Center as a nucleus to drive culture forward and to really support and nurture future generations to enjoy art and participate in a dialogue with visual culture. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
And I'm also delighted, and I must thank the organisers for putting together a stellar panel, an all-female panel. So this is wonderful to be here today. It's not often we get that. Let's get down to those questions that we mentioned anyway. So Gayan, I wanted to start by asking you, the foundation has been at the forefront of cultural transformation in Uzbekistan here. From your perspective, how do these cultural projects, whether institutions, exhibitions, or international collaborations, contribute to the country's investment climate and global image?
I feel like all the elements that you just said, it's crucially important for our foundation, but also when we see our partners from neighboring countries, also the global map, we are all basically trying to do a similar thing but for our own country. So we're trying to be quite active with our international partners. We also need to nurture the culture. Of course, in Uzbekistan we have a great history and a great heritage, but also we have to start today investing in our future. Capacity building is really crucial for our country because we have a really young generation which is around 65% of the population, below 30. So we have to think about them, we have to think about the future, but also trying to create initiatives, the global initiatives like the ones that we're doing now with Diana, which is Bukhara Biennial, which will bring a lot of attention to the city, but not just because of its ancient time, but also because it has a new cultural impact for the region. And what we're doing with Sara is also quite beneficial for the region because this is a center for contemporary art, quite unique. It's never really happened in the country before that the culture was supported so much by the leader of the country, but also that was so much invested. And I think it's really, the great progress that we did so far. It's all due to the great support of our president, His Excellency Shavkat Mirziyoyev, because he was really trusting our organization, but also he was trusting in the youth. He was trusting in the building capacity and investing in culture overall.
Fantastic. Diane, I'm going to bring you in there. We touch about, just the wealth and the opportunity that we do have here in Uzbekistan. Now, you're creating the first Bukhara Biennial this year. How Mughal Empire came from Uzbekistan, and he hosted this beautiful dinner for us in his studio, which Gayane hosted with Chef Pasha here from Tashkent, and Subodh and Pasha were looking at these shared food histories that bring these countries together. When we also talk about investment, gastronomy is also a huge opportunity because people travel around the world for these dining experiences. So in the biennial, we're not only looking at art, we're also looking at food, at hotels. The kind of people that travel to follow these artists will learn about Uzbek artists. They also are the kind of people that don't want to buy magnets from China of figures of Nasruddin. They want to actually support the most beautiful forms of craft. So this kind of international strategy of the Art and Culture Development Foundation is also to really uplift the talent that is here in Uzbekistan by putting people in international dialogue and also have them collaborate and co-make things directly. Thank you so much. You actually touched on a nerve there with Anthony Gormley, the Angel of the North. That's Newcastle, where I'm from in the UK. I mean, fantastic collection, as you say, of international artists supporting local Uzbekistan talent. Sara, if I bring you into the conversation, here. As someone who has worked in major global arts centres, what do you see as the strengths and challenges, for that case, of working in a rapidly emerging creative economy like Uzbekistan?
Jane, thank you for your question. I mean, that is a very interesting one to sort of think about. Tashkent in Uzbekistan historically has been part of the Silk Road, so these are early forms of what globalization is. But in terms of a sort of rethinking how that's going to sort of affect Tashkent, and through my own experience, I've worked across multiple geographies and particularly different arts topographies in the world, in the Middle East, in the Caucasus, Central Asia, as well as major Western metropolitan centers such as London and New York. Sort of one thing I'll say is in common with all of these spaces is that commerce follows culture. So I repeat that, commerce follows culture. And what I mean by that is to think that a lot of business is sort of following what cultural sort of trends are indicating, whether it be gentrification, when artists move into certain areas, cafes open, restaurants open, different groups move in, culture sort of raises the value of certain neighborhoods. When we think about different models such as Guggenheim opening up in Bilbao, and I worked at the Guggenheim Museum in New York, but when the Guggenheim Bilbao, a fishing town, sort of was completely transformed when Frank Gehry initiated the building there, in fact they have more visitors in Bilbao at the Guggenheim than they do at the Guggenheim in New York. And a sort of similar vein of thought is to think about how the Center of Contemporary Art is also going to ignite an entire change across Tashkent, which is going to not only introduce sort of cultural tourism, but also thinking about artist studios, the demand to sort of give employment, hiring assistants for artists, craft, foundries, cafes, studios, galleries. We really see that the Center of Contemporary Art is really going to be this impetus, this sort of catalyst that's going to drive cultural commerce across Tashkent, both for its local inhabitants, but also for regional and international parties also. So there's a really interesting sort of relational effect, if you can say, between these different global centers and how culture really plays such an important role. And it can't really be divorced. You can't really divorce culture and commerce from one another. It's although I work in the museums, I'm fully aware that these two ideas cannot be divorced. And it's a very interesting point to consider.
Thank you. Gayan, Uzbekistan is... You all cut me off there.
Sorry.
Uzbekistan is home to some of the world's most remarkable cultural heritage. How do you see this heritage not only as a source of identity, but also as a foundation for economic and creative development?
That's a great question. Thank you so much. Exactly what your question is basically the answer. Because when we look at the statistics of the tourism, for instance, and I can see some member of the tourism here with us, you can see that a lot of tourists are just coming once in our country. They just basically tick the box and they never come back. So in order for them to be attracted to our country and to repeat their travels, to our country, of course, we have to create cultural facilities, cultural integration, with the outside world, but also to create events that would be attended like every 2 years, every year, and so on, like biennials, festivals, etc. So we see culture as an inspiration, the heritage as an inspiration, and this is like a driving force for us to move forward with the arts and culture and to keep and continue driving the interest from the outside world to Uzbekistan. But of course, it's not just about the tourism. It's also about the capacity building. It's really important to grow and nurture the younger generation with the understanding of its global interest, but also what its cultural integrity. So for us,
maybe if you try
that's a microphone. So for us, it's crucially important also to nurture our younger generation, to make them proud of their nation, of the country, and that's how we can move forward, with all these cultural initiatives, and also for them to be our champions in the future.
And I think it's important not to underestimate, people want to hear about this. And we were talking backstage, and, I'm always amazed that, you put up a photograph on social media and people, they want to hear more, they want to see more. And I think that's amazing that that's what you're undertaking here.
Exactly. The social media, of course, helps us a lot. But then when you want to learn more about country, you want to see the spectrum, what country can deliver to you.
Sarah, I'm going to bring you back in from the end here because obviously the Centre for Contemporary Arts in Tashkent is the first institution of its kind in Uzbekistan, both in terms of the concept and programming, which is so important in terms of the platform that you have and what you can showcase. In your view, how can such a centre contribute to creative education and the emergence of new professional pathways within the creative economy?
Thank you, Jane. Well, one of the sort of key points to think about is that Centre of Contemporary Arts is 10 minutes walking distance from the international branch of Westminster University. And we're already in talks with them. Guyane has initiated a master's program, which I will also be teaching on. I also teach at both Yale and NYU in New York, where I've been based for the last 10 years. And it's really important to think about that this is going to be the pipeline into employment, not only for the center, but also wider cultural sphere. Like as Diana mentioned, the Bukhara Biennial is a really important sort of vehicle to encourage employment as well for all kinds of sort of positions, not necessarily those that are just arts orientated, but also other avenues as well, whether it be in sort of food and beverage industry or hospitality. There's also that sort of opportunity. But rather, to come back to your question, to rethink how the Centre of Contemporary Arts is going to play that role, is that we are going to be looking to hire people. And, you know, not everybody is going to be working at the curatorial level, designing exhibitions. We'll be hiring architects, designers for the planning, people working in different spheres of education, running workshops, all development, marketing. These are all diverse fields that we hope to attract people from different sort of fields. They might not necessarily have a cultural field, but they do have those skills. But in terms of thinking through, I mean, Uzbekistan has such a young population. I believe it's something like, please correct me if I'm wrong, about 70% of the country is under the age of 30. And this is sort of really, really interesting to think about, that this next generation are going to be the ones taking control, thinking about their future. And really, we want them to use art and culture as a space to rethink society, rethink various ideas. So really, it's a hub in that case, but it's also a vehicle for employment, learning, and community capacity also.
Thank you. Diana, what are some of the most surprising opportunities or partnerships that have presented themselves and emerged during your preparation for the biennial?
Sure. So I think one of the things that made me very excited to work on this project was that Gayane and her colleagues at the Art and Culture Development Foundation of Uzbekistan have been actively researching and engaging with artisans across the country for the last 7 years. So when I first took my visit, I saw the most beautiful carpets I have ever seen in my life, the most beautiful ceramics, the most beautiful woodworking. So people that are making, you know, wooden columns for palaces are now collaborating with artists to make sculptures. Or, for example, a fifth-generation carpet merchant for the first time is working with contemporary artists to develop new designs. So I think this is something that's very special. You know, when I work on exhibitions in the United States, for example, the organizations want to give all the art projects to production companies because they will give you the biggest thing at the lowest price with the most security, right? But here, it's an incredible opportunity to be working with people that are carrying these centuries-long traditions of making, and to also not make them stuck in the past of where that tradition came from, but to work with living people and also show that they're part of 2025 in the future to co-develop things together. So these partnerships between artisans and artists has been extremely special, and I think moving forward, when we also talk about economy, I wouldn't be surprised if other artists start coming to Uzbekistan to find similar sorts of collaborators to make their work, because these are not skills you can replicate in a production company anywhere in the world. So that to me has been an incredible surprising partnership. I know that whenever I work on things in the future, I definitely want to come to Uzbekistan to find collaborators. And also, I would say all the museum partnerships. So the biennial hasn't even opened yet, and we have about 30 museum groups who are bringing patrons with them to come see the biennial. And not just during the opening, across the entire run of the biennial. And they're not just coming to Bukhara, they are planning to go all over the country. So we have museums from China, museums from Korea, museums from the United States. It's been very, I think, positively surprising that the concept and the framework of, and I think it's also due to the trust that the foundation has built over their many years of projects around the world, but the response from our peers who want to use their own resources to come experience this has been very encouraging.
I don't think we can underestimate the power that art and culture, holds in terms of continuing to foster global conversations. It's so important for a society, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it's also people coming to a place and seeing it. So outside of these kind of stereotypes, also having people from here to create their own terminology for the kind of life that they're living and to be able to write their own history. So that for me has been wonderful, especially to learn from young Uzbek women about their past and also what they want for their future.
Gayana, I'm going to bring you back in here as well, because moving on from that, it's really important. We're hearing about what other people are learning from the Uzbek culture and heritage. How important is that cross-cultural dialogue within the cultural sphere globally? We're learning from each other, yes?
And for us, it's it's the main learning curves that we have at the moment. We work a lot with our neighboring country from Middle East. We work a lot with India. We work with Pakistan. We work with Europe, with US. And for us to feel that we are part of this global context and this putting Uzbekistan also on the global map for arts and culture, it's really a key point. And this is how we can get the younger generation to feel inspired. And this is the main goal for our institution at the moment.
Yeah. Sarah? Hello. You touched on this a bit earlier when we mentioned education and the importance of that. How important is also art and culture in not just supporting the education of the next generations, but driving and supporting social change as well?
That's a great question. As also to concur what Gayan was saying is that we're really invested in the next generation, and part of education is to sort of think it through expansively. And culture, things don't happen in a vacuum. Art isn't produced in a vacuum. Education doesn't happen in a vacuum. Inevitably, there's going to be, with this very young population, there's going to be sort of a very interesting drive into what that social change is going to look like. More opportunities, advancement, closing of the gender gap, so many different ways it can manifest itself. And I think the Centre of Contemporary Art, through its sort of forthcoming educational programs, will be that forum. So one of the programs I'll just mention to you is a youth program that's by youth, run by youth. And it will be a program that's for 16 to 22-year-olds, and they will be the leading force. We recently hired the youngest member of our team, is only 19 years old, and he's pre-university architecture student who will actually be running this youth program. So it's a really elevated way to think about this next generation, to really give them the opportunity to rethink, how do you see culture, how do you see education, and where do you see these two meeting? And thinking about that, maybe art is one visual language that we can sort of think through. We also have a music curator at CCA, which we recently hired also. So we're expanding beyond just the visual arts to really rethink how can education and how can societal change and art sort of work in tandem with one another. This very young, exciting generation at the helm of that. I mean, we're here to mentor, we're here to support, but we really want them to feel part of it, and to have Uzbek next generation at the forefront is really sort of critical and key.
I think that is one of the amazing things that I've discovered in my line of work in terms of the leadership of this country and their investment in the youth. You know, they've got that right, and there's a lot I think can be learned from other countries. Like, you know, other countries can learn from that and take that away. Gayane, in terms of your commitment to creating a cultural and artistic legacy, what would you see as your number one goal end? What do you hope your legacy is going to be?
Well, that's a very difficult question because we don't have just one goal, and it's quite universal, you know, with the other ministries and with other players, you know, of this kind of integral part. But I have to also, you know, just adding to what Sarah said and what Diana said, I think it's really important for us to see our main goal is a global change, and really want to bring this change to Uzbekistan. This is why we are investing, and when I say investing, we also mean, of course, you know, investments as a money. You know, we're investing a lot in cultural infrastructure. So for us, on the global now we're putting the new museum, the State Museum of Art, which we're building with Tadeu Ando, with a Japanese renowned architect, the Center for Contemporary Art, and it's all of these platforms. This is our goals, basically, as we leave as a legacy for the new infrastructure. Just like centuries ago, we had the Registan and other beautiful buildings. Now we're trying to create the new legacy of the country. And this is why, you know, I just feel really nostalgic being in this space. You know, almost a year ago, we opened a Creative Economy Forum here, and it was quite successful, you know, and all of our partners were here together, you know, to celebrate the arts and culture. And I feel like half a year ago, it's just like, it was just like far away, you know, because for this amount of time, we already created so much. And we can really see how this younger generation who we was inviting to our conference, they already have the new work placements. You know, they're part of this creative economy, and I feel really thrilled. So this is the main goal, basically.
Exciting times to come. Diana, you know, what is your vision for the future of the arts space here in Uzbekistan?
I think that there are so many very, very talented and exciting contemporary artists here that just haven't had the opportunity yet to connect with the wider world. And I think what will be so exciting is all of the works in the Bukhara Biennial are commissions, which means that they're new works that we're developing with the artists in collaboration with artisans from Uzbekistan. And I look forward to watching these works tour in museums all over the world, to also have these artists be able to travel and to learn and to grow. And I work on another project in Bangladesh that I've been working on for the past 13 years. And when I started, Bangladeshi artists weren't really included in international exhibitions, museums, survey shows for various reasons. There were no commercial galleries, there were no contemporary art museums. But now, I mean, kind of every single platform is including artists from Bangladesh because they're really good. And I think there's something similar here in Uzbekistan. And so I hope that through my work with the biennial and all of the people spending their time to do research here, the world will open with so many opportunities for these very, very talented young artists here.
Fantastic. Sarah, your vision for... No, you go for it. The floor is yours.
Sorry, Jane, this is just a sort of impulse to press the button so that you could all hear me. Thank you so much. Wonderful ideas both Gayane and Diana just shared. I want you to say something, just to sort of rethink something from the sort of past. Amor Timur, the great leader of this part of the world, this region, he brought craftsmen from all over the world to execute his vision. There were artisans brought from Iran, from Syria, from Egypt that contributed to these wonderful open museums that you see in Samarkand, in Khiva, in Bukhara. And it's sort of a delight to look at. The word for artist in the Persian language is honar mandar. In Uzbek, that means craftsman. It's really sort of interesting to sort of see how that indigenous word, honarmandar, which means artist in Farsi, and in Uzbek it means craftsman, how that sort of evolved as well, and how this is a sort of synergy between craft, fine art, different registers sort of coming together here. And it's very, very unique. You look at the West, and there's such a separation between what's considered craft and what is considered high-level art. And here you sort of see those borders and those sort of barriers very much dissolved. And I'm really, really excited to sort of see how not only the Center of Contemporary Art is going to grapple with these ideas, but also the activities that the ACDF and Guyana are planning, not just in Bukhara, but also in Samarkand and Khiva and elsewhere, also Newcastle. And it's going to be very exciting to sort of see how this next generation of Honar Mandar are going to be taking that forward. So thank you very much.
Sarah, Diana, Gayan, thank you so much for being wonderful guests on stage with me today. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our fantastic panelists.